Well, thank everybody for joining. Thank you, Checco, for coming.
Thank you for having me, and I'm sorry I sound like this, but it's the voice of Camera Image after 4 in the morning, my first coffee.
And arriving at midnight or whatever, right? So you just came in.
I landed here at 1 in the morning.
Oh my God. Well, thanks so much for, anyway, doing this here. So to start things off, I'm sure you all know Checco, and we'll be looking at 2 of his works. One is Dem, that's also screening here, right?
Yeah, Dem, it's a series that we did pre-pandemic. It's an 8-episode series for Amazon. We finished it last year, the year before the pandemic, so whatever that is, a decade ago. And it's the family that goes through racism in the 50s in Los Angeles. And sadly, it's very contemporary now. But yeah. It's a horror. I always say it's a drama that the best people that are there are the horror apparitions. The other people are really bad.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's just jump right in and have a look at the trailer, get a feel for it.
And it's in competition here for pilot. And it's 8 episodes. And they just approved the 2nd season, which will be the story of another family somewhere else.
Like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning on an ever spinning reel, like a snowball down a mountain or a carnival balloon, like a carousel that's turning, running rings around the moon, like a clock whose hands are sweeping past minutes of its face, and the world is like an apple whirling silently in space, like the circles that you find in the windmills of your
What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
That's a very good trailer.
Yeah, it's turn on the lights when you watch it at home. It was shot in the Sony Venice. The producer and the director really wanted to work with anamorphics, which I'm happy with. But the problem of the anamorphic is that requires a lot of discipline for the focus. I don't know if you guys know the anamorphic. You can only focus the 28, which is your medium lens, or the 40, which is your medium lens, can only go 3 feet. So if you want to do a close-up, you have to put a diopter in there. So I sort of try to, for saving them from themselves, I try to say, no anamorphic, please, because it's 6 pages a day. It's a television show. It's hard to say what is television and what is not, but probably that's a different conversation. But so you still shoot 2, 3, 4, 5 pages a day, so you need to go close up. So Hawk, we started with the V-lights, and then we ended up using the mini Hawks, which is an anamorphic look with a spherical lens. I'm very happy with the results. A lot of African American skin tones in the same frame as a very blonde woman, So it was challenging and it was interesting. But the story is tragic because as I said at the beginning, the monster that, the creatures that sort of attack them are much nicer than the white people that are racially charged against them. So it was sort of like a balance, and it was very interesting.
Can you talk about the skin tones? I think that's a major thing for us, especially here in Europe working. We don't have so many dark skin tones in front of the camera, sadly, and how you light them and how you treat, especially we're saying with contrast as well.
Well, I'm old enough to know what an ancient art is. There used to be, you're not that old, there used to be a thing called music videos. You guys must have heard, last century there were some music videos, and it was an art form that went away because Napster decided that MTV wasn't good enough. And in music videos you had to do, most artists are African American, thank God, and they had that venue to express themselves. It's very interesting, for a cinematographer there is this, oh my God, we need to pour more light because they're darker skin. And that's a misconception. You actually need exactly the same amount of light. It's about makeup. It's about reflections. And it's about, I'm gonna bore you for a minute. There are two things when I started my profession I didn't know: special effects and makeup. And I was very frustrated, so I went to my friend and said, he's a special effects guy, not visual effects, special effects like explosions. And I said, it was already a DP, and I said, can I be a trainee for you? So I spent 2 weeks as a trainee in a special effects movie. The first thing they did is they made me dig a trench for bombs. So I said, okay, that's enough for training. So I learned, and the other thing is I went to a makeup artist friend of mine and said, do you have a trainee program? He goes, no, but I do workshops. So I took a week of workshop of makeup, and I looked fantastic with the little pencil and with the little bag, and it was great. And I learned about makeup, and makeup is crucial when it comes to the film industry. Not to make them look good or bad, just to make them look the way you want them. And in makeup, every makeup artist knows the face is divided in sections. This is one section, this is another section, and this is another section. And you divide the face in the shape of the face. Imagine a pear. The shape of the face is a pear. So you apply a little shine here, and a little shine here, and a little shine here, and then the nose becomes small. If you have a small nose, you apply shine here, and the nose pushes forward. So there are all these makeup, I wouldn't call them tricks, but there are these makeup techniques. And with African American skins, if you can see, she has the classic pear. She has, it's matte here, so no reflection here, is reflection here, and here. So you basically put a bounce or a light bridge, and it reflects. And it's the same amount of light I would get. So if she sits here and I sit here, you don't adjust the exposure. It's just about reflections. And there is a lot of technique on that, but once you get it, you get it. And it's the most beautiful thing to be able to just have someone, you know, Kate Winslet sitting here, and then you take Kate Winslet and you put Halle Berry, and they look, or Denzel Washington, or anybody, and they look the same. It's just a matter of technique, and it's a matter of makeup.
So basically, that's one part about the shininess, right, of it.
Yeah.
What about color?
That's a little trickier, because dark skin goes very well with blue and green. Very little, I mean, obviously, very, very little. And unfortunately, Caucasian people like me don't, well, almost like me, don't look very good with green. So magenta, it's a color that it's not favorable for anyone. but especially in African American skin, because the absorption of magenta is higher than the absorption of blue because of the melamine in the skin. So the skin absorbs magenta more in the African American, in the darker skin. So you have to stay away from that. But other than that, I never had an issue with that, and that's thanks to this ancient art called music videos.
Yeah. So basically, when you're going in for colors, you're looking for blues and for greens on the darker skin tones?
Yes, and like in this case, for example, the camera was at 4,000 Kelvin, and I'm talking about shooting. Then, of course, you do color correction,
Yeah.
but the camera was at 4,000 Kelvin. That was an anamorphic. That was not an anamorphic. That was a Hawk, a Mini Hawk 40. It was rigged in a car, and that's basically the sunlight. We were driving, whatever, west, and the sun was somewhere on top of her, so it's a little backlit. And sure enough, you can see in the reflection of the glasses that there were no lights.
Yeah.
So it was just natural light.
Yeah.
When you go into a very romantic scene or something inside with tungsten light, then you have to adjust a little bit, because the warm light with the African American skin, or darker skin, the warm light has a tendency to go magenta. So 5 years ago, you would put like a tungsten bulb, dim it down, and maybe put some gel. Today, I don't know what my gaffer does, but he has a bulb there and a console here, and he does something, and it looks great because it's LED, whatever. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it looks good.
Because so with the warmer skin tones, how is it with the darker skin? Is that okay? Because obviously for our kind of skin tones, it's good actually.
You'll be surprised. It's more a myth than a reality, at least for me. If you have the correct, first of all, most makeup artists in African American skin tone, what they try to do is put matte. And that's the first thing I say, no. Just let them come from the trailer the way, unless you want some makeup, unless you want a prosthetic or something. But don't do anything, And once they go to the set, we do the rehearsal, I say, okay, she's gonna be sitting here looking at you, and he's gonna be here, so he has a backlight, so give me a little more shine here, and a little more here, so the reflection of that, so it works in that way. And when I say shine, it's very little. It's just like a microscopic, whatever they put in there, I don't know.
So how is your relationship with the makeup artist? Especially you've got difference for darker skins, for white skins. How do you communicate with them?
You start by being very nice, and you end up telling what to do.
That always works.
In the nicest possible way. I have a very good relationship with them, because most of the time I try to do as many, especially with principal characters, camera test. So you put them in front of the camera, in front of the lenses. And one of the tricks of the camera test is that they'll never look as good as in the camera test, because they have the perfect light and they have the perfect camera, and they're standing on a mark and they don't move, and it's not hot, it's not warm, they don't sweat. So your shining moment in life as a cinematographer is your camera test. From there, everything is downhill. After that, it's a disaster. But at least in the camera test, you'll get hired again. And you start by having a relationship and saying, listen, I respect what you do, it's very important, please let me know if you have an issue. And the makeup artist is the one that knows what they feel, because the first thing they do is they have a coffee, or 2 fingers of scotch, depending what they do in the morning, and they sit with them and they tell them, oh, my mother died and my dog was barking this morning and my son, so they know, so they come to me and whisper, oh, she's in a bad mood or he's in a good mood. So that's the relationship you have to have with them, and give them space. And in this case, with African American skin, the hair, it's a whole technique, because everything is a wig. For her to have that natural hair, it's 5 hours. So it's a wig. So she has short hair, you put a wig. So everything is it's very complex. So you have to have a good relationship because they spend 5 or 6 hours on the makeup chair not 5 or 6, but 2 hours every day. So anyway, be friends with the makeup artist, for sure.
Yeah, and that's actually the exact opposite, right, in terms of skin tones. Yeah.
That's also a wig, because she goes from this hair to the next incarnation, has curly hair. So in her case, well, in the case of them was very interesting because there was very little cross-pollination between the neighbors that were white and the African-American family. In her case, that was, again, the sunny Venice, and that was in the afternoon. You can see the sun was somewhere there. And that's one street in Los Angeles that it's preserved as a not a backdrop, but a backlot, but it's just a street that has old houses that people don't live there, and somebody bought it, and we shoot movies there.
When you're shooting 5 to 6 pages a day on the exteriors, how fast do you have to work outside in terms of control of environment?
Never fast enough. I started in documentaries, as you know, and so one of the things you have to do is to think about where the sun, this was shot in Los Angeles, in California, but like in the southern hemisphere or not as north as in Poland, you have the advantage of where the sun is going to be, and you know how many clouds are there going to be, because there are going to be no clouds. It's just like the sun is there. And now with global warming, it's getting a little different, but a year ago, yeah, the sun is there, it's going to be there, it's going to be blue, and it's going to be hot and horrible. So you have to work, and most of the time what you do is you do this part of the scene in the morning and the reverse in the afternoon, so they're always backlit, and then the directors, some directors that are not experienced enough, they go, oh my God, but the sun is in a different place. And my answer is, if they're looking at the sun, they're not looking at the performance, so that's your problem. This is my...
It's interesting about that, right? Because the thing you really remember is contrast ratios. And it doesn't really matter where the light source is at some point then, no?
Oh, it doesn't matter. It never matters where the source is. I mean, yeah, it matters in this case. If I do this shot and then this shot, obviously I'm a little more front lit and you're backlit. But if it looks good, it looks good. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is where is the window. But like, how many of us have seen a John Wayne movie where the leading lady is front lit beautifully and hugging him, and then he comes with the horse and he's front lit too, and he hugs her, and then he goes that way and the sunset is there and he with the horse going, and then you turn around on her and she has the sun back here and looks great. Who cares? Who cares? It's about, I mean, within reason, obviously, but who cares? It's about how beautiful it looks.
Yeah, and as what you're saying is about the room orientation. As soon as you know where the window is, nobody gets confused what's happening because there's a...
Well, also, the screen, it's flat. No, it's flat. If you touch it, there is nothing behind it, yeah? So, screen direction doesn't exist. This thing of the line and crossing the line and not crossing the line, the screen is flat. So if someone, it's there, cannot be here. So it's there only. So the screen direction doesn't exist. Of course, I mean, the cowboys need to go this way and the Indians need to come this way. If not, they'll never meet. That's a different conversation, but that's common sense. But screen direction doesn't exist and lighting direction doesn't exist. As far as you know that the window is there, then the audience is not stupid, because if you take one intelligent audience and multiply it by 100,000 or by 55, there are 55 more intelligent people than one. So the audience is extraordinarily smart. You cannot trick them. You have to believe. If I don't believe it, they won't believe it. But they don't know what they don't know, so they don't care where the window is. They just care that the character is crying. So there are a lot of confusion between, oh my God, the light has to come from there. No, who says that? I'm the DP. I say where the light comes from. That's the end of the conversation.
Do you care about eye lines, where people look, in terms of...
yes and no. I care about the story, and when the story makes sense, it's fine. It has to make sense with the story. I have to believe it. I have to look through the eyepiece and believe it. I could go and whisper to a director, I didn't believe what I saw. So if I don't believe it, that I know the script, I know the actor, and I know the story, if I don't understand it and I don't believe it, nobody will. I think there are many, many things that we are taught in film school. I went to architecture school, so that's why I'm very agnostic about this whole thing. That we're taught in film school that are very important, but there are also many things that we're taught in film school that are very relevant. And among those are the line, the screen direction, the lighting sources. I mean, you're achieving magic with a mirror that you could achieve with the sun there, or you could achieve with a window there. So it doesn't really matter what's there. What matters is what's here. Or even more, what matters is what's here.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is an interesting one, because dark skin against dark walls.
Yes. The whole premise of this is what they don't see and you cannot see. So the little girl, it's seeing an apparition that nobody else sees, only her. So we wanted to play a little bit with her fear in the audience fear. She had a bounce, a little white bounce, and that was only one light source in a corner. I tortured my assistant. That was probably a 1.9 exposure, a 2500 ASA, so it's enough light for everything. And again, she has a little sheen on her forehead and her chins. That's why you see the highlights.
That's interesting,
and
yeah.
in that case, she was 8 or 9. She was a little girl like this. So just running around in set, she was sweating, and I would say, great, don't touch her up.
Yeah. But it's exactly, I mean, I think that's the whole magic in lighting. It's not about, as you say, it's not about the light source. It's actually where it hits and how the reflections come off of it if it starts to work, because that's magic, yeah.
And also you're working with your wardrobe department, and in this case with production design, and it's a pink car and he's dressed in white with a brown jacket. I mean, you have, your color palette has to be apropos on what you're trying to say. I mean, we're doing a period piece, so it's a very specific. If you're doing a contemporary piece, you're lucky if they don't dress in jeans, you know. So.
But still, it's a decision that he's wearing white, right, outside in the sun. Yeah.
He's a milkman, so there was no choice. It's like, the usual question is, do you like white in wardrobe? And I said, ugh, unless it's 500 nurses running in the snow, then yes, you know, I like white, you know. But the other trick is you talk to the wardrobe department and you tell them, give it to me a little off-white, you know. So that's actually, in reality, is not white. It's more like an ivory color, but by the time the sun hits it, it's white. Yeah. Like that wall back there, it's not really white. It's ivory, a little bit. Yeah, ivory, I would say. Yeah.
But that stuff where you actually, because it's just gorgeous the way the sun's hitting right there, just as planned when you shoot it, right?
That was specifically designed on the Tech Scout. On my iPhone, there is an app called Sun Seeker or something like that, so I go like this. September 27, the sun is gonna be there at 3 p.m. Okay, let's try and do it between 2 and 5, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the reverse, you do it in the morning where the sun is on the other side. So you try to skew those things as much as you can, then the producer hits in reality too, and you shoot it at lunch.
But this you got.
Yeah, did one work out? Here is the same. Actually, that shot was shot by Javier Grovet. Javier, it's a cinematographer that is here. We were shooting both. So that shot is Javier's shot. He's a fantastic friend and a fantastic cinematographer. He's in Camera Image this year. This is basically this little girl that puts her hand in white paint because she wants emotionally to be white and to belong. And there is a tragic moment later that she paints herself white, you know, to belong, and the other girls hate her anyway because she's not white. And this is, again, very little. You see the sheen in her left side, and that's about it.
Yeah.
This is the 8th episode out of 10. The story starts in 53 and goes 10 days in 53. But there is a flashback to 1800 and something. So the writer, producer wanted to do it in black and white, and the director wanted to do it in black and white. In the studio, Amazon said, no, we shouldn't do it in black and white. And so they all look at me and said, what can we do? And I said, I don't know, we can make a decision. It's either black and white or color. You guys figure it out. I'm very good at both, so you tell me. Sure enough, they couldn't make a decision. So I'm like, okay, so let me answer for you tomorrow. So I slept all night on it, and I said, I talked to my colorist, Stefan Sonnenfeld of Company 3, which is a wonderful colorist. And I said, Stefan, I want to shoot it in, shooting in black and white is not an option. You have a sensor, and the sensor is the sensor. I'm happy for whoever spent $10,000 in the Leica monochrome, but guess what? I can put black and white in my Leica and it looks the same. Shh, don't tell Leica. It's a better sensor, but. So we shot it in color with, in my head, the possibility of going black and white or color. The only decision I took was to create longer shadows and harsher light. So every exterior, not this one in particular, but there are other exteriors there. That is probably 3 p.m. You see the shadow, it's here in the shoulder. But all the big exteriors were shot between, it was summer, so between 5 and 7 p.m. So they're very long shadows that if it were to be black and white, it would be great. And if it were to be color, it would be romantic and great, or romantic or whatever, the tragic and longer shadow. That was the only decision. There is a big element in this particular episode that we cannot see here, but there is a big fire in a church. So fire and black and white, because fire, it's orange, fire, it's... So we did a little bit of test, and I took the decision that it was fine, and it works. It's interesting because fire, it's by definition warm. At least that's what we all think it is, and it is, in fact. Fire is at 2600 Kelvin, 2800 Kelvin, especially wood fire. So that's very warm. So in black and white, fire is white, you know, because it's just light. So that was the only thing, but it worked out. It's a pretty beautiful episode.
So you play with the flickering and the movement of lights and stuff, yeah.
Which I don't do much with lights. I'd rather have a flame bar. The problem with the flame bars is that the sound department comes and says, what do I do with the of the gas coming out of the flames and the dialogue, you know, so you have to combine. But yes, we did most of it. What I could, I did with flame bars. And if not, one of the bounces with a little flickering. And you'll be surprised, if you take a candle, unless it's windy, the candle doesn't flicker. You put a candle in a dark room, and everybody comes and says, where is the flicker? And I said, put your hand near the candle, there is no flicker. It's one source that it doesn't move. If you blow it, then, but it's not flicker, it's basically you're pointing the light in different directions. So one has to be careful with flicker. The first instinct is to put 7 bulbs and make them flicker, and it looks like a rock and roll concert. You know, it doesn't really flicker.
No. Interesting. So yeah, we went through the images of them.
Yeah.
One thing, just I think to point out again is, so basically what he did is color. It's just a really ingenious idea to say you have the low light sun, so you got the contrast like film noir for the black and white, and when it's in color, you actually had a beautiful color with the same direction. So that was actually a trick.
That was a choice. I mean, to be honest, the wardrobe department had a heart attack when I told them it may go black and white because they have this, okay, so for whoever, unlike me, that I'm slightly colorblind, so this is a little green, this is a little gray, forget this, and this is black, and this is black, and this is black. In black and white, this whole thing is black. There is no difference in there. So the wardrobe department had a little bit of a heart attack because they had this beautiful dark brown, like your vest and your pants, and the trim of your jacket is a little lighter brown, and or your sweater, and it looks great. But in black and white, if you squint your eyes, it's all gets. So that was a little unfair for the wardrobe department, but everyone else, it was fine. Especially because it's a Western, so there are very little colors, everything is muted. If I were to do it again, I will ask them to decide prior, because it's not fair for some departments, Even for the production design, you have this beautiful building that the trim is a little darker and brighter and etc. It all goes gray. Just like that.
Yeah, sure. Cool. So the other project you're working on, I was so excited that Barry Lewison is doing something again, and you're on it. So you check out Barry Lewison. He's a Wag the Dog, and all the movies out there. It's incredible. So let's have a look at the trailer.
I know most people don't think about us up there in the mountains. Many of my patients are miners. It's dangerous work, and they carry the burden of building this nation on their backs. They're in pain. These people, my people, trusted me. I can't believe how many of them are dead now.
We've begun looking at something that could be big.
OxyContin.
Purdue Pharma, they've been marketing the drug as something that's non-addictive, when it clearly is.
All your doctors are going to be asking, how is this even possible? Your most effective talking point are these magic words.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
Less than one.
Less than 1?
They told me that less than 1% would become addicted.
If OxyContin does what I think it can, it could soon become Purdue's first billion-dollar drug.
Purdue continues to lie about the drug's safety to doctors, to patients, and the FDA. We have a major case here.
Addiction rates, overdoses, and crime are on the rise across the country because of this drug.
I think maybe the medicine might be just a tad more addictive than you said.
I can't live like this anymore.
Our community is ground zero for a national catastrophe.
Purdue will not move unless we punch hard.
This is not our fault. These people want to be addicted.
I want top executives to feel some pain.
It's crucial they understand we've created the greatest painkiller in the history of human civilization. I think I can make this the biggest drug in the world.
It's going to be fun to watch. How's it working with such an actor-driven director?
Oh, it was fantastic. It's the first time I watched the trailer. I'm like, wow. Anybody is from the United States here? Oh. This is a unique problem from the United States. I come from Peru. I'm Peruvian. We produce all the cocaine in the world. Very proud. We produce guano and cocaine. They're two things my country produces. But if you're a person that wants to use it, you have to go in a back alley and knock at a door at night, and it's very dangerous, and you're afraid because the police is behind you. Usually the police sells it, but that's a different conversation. And it's illegal, and it's scary, and then you use it. This is a unique North American problem. the person you trust more, other than your priest or your rabbi or your mueddin, the person you trust more, your doctor, is prescribing you a pill that makes you addicted and kills you. And this is a unique problem from the United States. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. 750,000 people a year die of overdose of this one particular opioid. So it's a big deal, and nobody talks about it because it's the big corporation, nobody wants to talk about it. And it's all about greed and capitalism. That's my little political speak. To talk about Barry Levinson. Barry Levinson was fantastic, is fantastic. He would come to a director scout and say, oh, this is a nice building, in a little high-pitched voice. This is a nice building. Okay, so yeah, you know, Checco is sitting here and Jacob will be sitting there, and I think they will come from that door. Okay, let's go. What are we doing here? I was like, what do you mean? Yes, that's the way they're gonna be. He doesn't go to the tech scout. So you go to the tech scout and tell everyone, well, Barry said that they come in from that door, they'll sit here and they talk. And your crew looks at you like, really? Yes. Sure enough, on the day, he will arrive and he will talk to Michael Keaton and say, hey, Michael, so you're coming from there, you're sitting here and you're giving your speech. Okay. Sure enough, they're sitting here, there is a light there, they come, oops, the light is in the movie, so put the light on the other side. They come and they sit and talk. He does one take, maybe two, and he goes, okay, we're done. What else can we do? Because this is done. We shot 9 hours, 10 hours. One dolly in or push in, and one close-up. Super economical, fantastic with the actors.
And all the energy going in the right direction, right?
All the energy, there is not one moment wasting, what should we do? And he would come running, he's 79, he would come running from the monitor and talk to Michael and come back, maybe do 1 or 2 takes. The story, we shot again with the Venice. I've had, my last 3 projects have been with the Venice. I'm not one of those DPs that only shoots with Red, only shoots with Alexa. I've shot with everything, so I'm agnostic. I don't own camera gear, so it doesn't matter to me. This project was shot with the Venice, with the Zeiss lenses. I needed some crispier, I wanted some more crispier image. The Hawks have a personality, so it would impose a personality. The Zeiss is very German, so it's very sort of, it's very
close to Switzerland.
Yes, very close to Switzerland. It's almost, I was in Zurich yesterday. How Swiss is Switzerland? It's amazing. I mean, I studied in a Swiss school in Peru, so it's like, wow, they're really Swiss. So the Zeiss are very crisp, very, very clean. Yeah. They don't have a personality, and that's the good thing about it. They don't have a personality. So we, and this was about what the tragedy. So it really didn't. You didn't want it to push the tragedy anywhere. It was tragic enough what was happening.
And it's so gratifying to see films that are talking about contemporary problems. And on that note, you know.
And also contemporary, I have a 14-year-old daughter, you know. This is one movie I can show her and say, this is important, you should watch it. You know, you do, and believe me, I enjoy doing each chapter 2 about a monster killing people. Yeah, is it important in the big scheme of humanity? Not really. Yeah, it's important for my ego because I came to Camera Image, and it's important for my bank account because then so I can pay her school. Is it important in the big scheme of humanity? No, not really. We could live without it, we could live without Marvel, another Marvel movie, nothing happens. This is a little different. This is something that is important.
Yeah.
And you try to do as many important things as you can in life, you know.
Yeah.
I think, I hope.
That's a perfect way to end this. Thank you for that. Well, I'll hand over. Are there any questions for Checco?
What kind of diffusions you like to use for the style? You're more like organic things like silk, or synthetic, like, or you don't?
I don't do diffusion in the exterior. I just put them in the right place. Unless you're doing, an extraordinary big budget movie where you can actually have a construction crane with a 40 by 40, it's 12 meters by 12 meters silk on a construction crane that, I don't know in Europe, but in the States, the producer will look at you and say, are you crazy? Unless you can do that, anything that is smaller than 4 times the size of this, you'll end up seeing in the ground. So I don't. Maybe for a close-up, maybe there is a little diffusion, whether it's highlight or Hampshire or opal or something like that, maybe. But no, I never use it. That's the beauty of living in this part of the world. You don't need diffusion because you rarely have sun. But the sun is not that bad, believe me, it's okay.
Judith back there had a question.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about, because you said before that you set the camera on another temperature of 4,000. So I wanted to ask how you work with the color temperature.
90% of the time, I would say 100% of the time in my case, but 90% of the time I work with a DIT. A DIT, it's a, I don't know if the word translates, but it's a digital image technician, which is the guy that is sitting there and is coloring on set. And it's done in a way that doesn't affect the final product because you do it on the metadata, you don't do it on the raw. You don't do it on the negative or the digital negative, you do it somewhere else. So I pick and choose the color temperature of the camera constantly. Like some scenes are shot at 5600, some scenes are shot at 2800, some scenes are shot at 4000. So I start by embedding, if it's, let's say your scene, that is a window, I'm sitting here, and I have a tungsten light here, see if I shoot at 4000, then the tungsten light won't be that warm, and the sunlight will be a little cooler. So I start by doing that. And then in color correction, you can do whatever you want to a certain extent. But applying a Kelvin LUT, applying a Kelvin degree to your negative, or at least to the viewing part of your negative, helps you understand where the lights are. And the one thing I'm quite obsessive, is probably, I'm obsessive about my coffee and I'm obsessive about the monitors on set. So every monitor on set has to be calibrated. It doesn't need to be an expensive monitor. They can be all shitty, but they have to look shitty the same way. So every monitor on set is calibrated by the camera house, etc. And there has a big tape that says do not touch. Because I want to be able to look at this, correct the lighting, to look at that, get my light meter. So if I go to another monitor, I say, oh my God, what happened? You know? So every monitor on set. Unfortunately, nowadays, your monitor is your light meter, you know. I can tell you, I take my light meter and I put it against here, and you take your light meter and at, I don't know, 500 ASA, will say 2.8 here. And you talk to Sony and the manufacturer says, oh yeah, our camera is 500 ASA. So you put the camera here, and the T-stop is, 11. And I'm like, but my light meter says 5.6. And he goes, yeah. So light meters, cameras don't talk to each other very well. I still have one because I'm romantic, but it doesn't really work.
It's crazy, especially as a gaffer, and going back to the monitor. It's not the same that you were looking at. It's like the ground is being pulled out of you.
Oh yeah,
because
completely.
You have no idea where you are. Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. So I demand that every monitor looks the same. And I don't need the best monitor. It doesn't matter to me. At least they all look the same.
It's
because
consistent.
What is that? Oh, what did you do? Oh, sorry, this is...
Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody, including the craft service or the driver, oh, it's too bright. Who are you? Oh, I'm the driver. Okay. With all due respect for the drivers, that they know a lot about lighting. But.
I have a question in terms of lens choices. I know that the studios usually have a say in terms of aspect ratio, but do they ever, say
question was about, sorry, I couldn't hear.
I'll do it again. The question was if the production companies decide or the producers decide which lenses to use, right? That was.
I don't want to sound cocky, but there is a point in your life when people stop telling you what to do when. I think I reached that point in my life. No, they don't tell me anything. They used to, yes, and I used to fight them politically or very softly. They do have a saying in, rightfully so, in the aspect ratio. Though with the streaming, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, they don't have a saying anymore because they're so confused. They really don't understand what's happening, so they really don't care, and they think I know better, so I'm happy. The most common aspect ratio now is 2:1, which is a little, imagine your iPad or your tablet. It's a little thinner than your tablet, so it's 2:1. The old Storaro VistaVision thing is 2:1. That's the most common aspect ratio right now. These two shows were shot in 2:3. Dope Sick was 2:1. Them was 2:3:9. They don't have a saying in lenses. Sometimes they ask you what camera are you gonna use, and I have always the feeling that they ask you that question so they feel important, and they feel asking you a question that, so my answer is, oh, I'm gonna use a very nice camera. It's what brand of camera? Oh, I don't know. It's a very nice. It's gonna be very expensive, don't worry about it. So that's the end of the conversation. Now they don't have a saying on that. They do have a saying on aspect ratio because they wanna know where they're watching it, and if they sell TVs, if you work for Sony, they would like you to do 16:9 because they sell TVs, you know. If you work for Apple, they want you to shoot 2:1 because they sell iPhones. If you shoot for Amazon, they don't care because they'll sell boxes of things anyway. So no, it has become very irrelevant as a conversation. They don't have a saying. They have a saying about budgets constantly. That's one of the my main conversation in prep is, when they ask me what are you gonna shoot in, they're basically asking how much money are we gonna spend, you know? And there is a magic number in the States, in a Hollywood, in a US production, it's a magic number. Your camera package has to include 2 camera bodies, sometimes 2.5 because you have a Steadicam or a crane, so you have an extra body in case the camera goes down, and a set of lenses or a set and a half of lenses, and that package has to be X a week. And that X is usually between $17,000 and $21,000 a week. And they don't care, you know, as far as it's not 23 and it's 21 or whatever the number is. So but they don't have a saying on that. And they all go, oh my God, it looks great. Yeah, I told you. You had a question.
To keep consistency in lighting, do you find any rules that you set for yourself, or specific lights that you?
That's why I work with extraordinary gaffers. That's his problem. I started being very dogmatic as a cinematographer with lighting, and I would go and check every gel. We have friends from Roscoe. I would go and check every gel, and oh my God, this is not a Roscoe gel, this is a Lee gel. I want all my gels to be Roscoe or Lee or whatever, you know. The older you get, or the more times you've made things, you start to realize and understand that what's important is the story, what's important is the performance, what's important is the script. And the more time you spend lighting, the less time they have to do the job of acting. And you start realizing it's not that important. Of course, that doesn't mean it's not important, the consistency of the lighting, but As far as it comes from my left, you know, so right now, let's say the master is like this, yeah? And you're the camera, the master is like this. So the next shot, if I'm sitting here, then the light is not hitting me. So that's a mistake. But if I'm sitting here and in the close-up, instead of being in from there, it's a little from there because you want light into eyes, doesn't matter. As far as the audience doesn't see it as a mistake, that's okay. During the day, it's more difficult. You start a scene at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 11, the sun is completely different. So you have to understand where the scene goes when you rehearse and you say, okay, unfortunately, we have to start with the close-up and we do the master at the end. Or we don't do the master. We just close up, close up, close up, and then we go inside and do the other scene and come out when the sun is perfect and we do the master at the end, if you don't mind. That kind of stuff, yes. But on things you can control, I don't find it that crucial, I think.
I mean, it's like, I feel like imitating a cinematographer's style is like 90% of my job, and then the 10%, the magic is what you bring in. A little bit brighter, a little bit darker. It's in the last few minutes, and all of a sudden this image just evolves, and the lighting evolves. And that's done fast because, you know, obviously you don't want to spend all your time figuring out where the light's going to be standing. Yeah.
The most important thing is the story and the actors. And I say it truly, the most important, if you come out of one of my movies, I haven't done 100, so if you come out of one movie and say, oh my God, it's a great movie, I'll hug you. If you come out of a movie and say, oh my God, the movie was horrible, but it looks great, I did a bad job. Because I didn't support the story enough. I mean, then there are bad directors and bad movies, and I hope not to choose them, but generally speaking, it's not about the image, it's about what it makes you feel.
What a great way to end this. Thank you, Checco.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.